There are truths that are never whispered aloud. They're hidden beneath layers of romance, veiled in sweet metaphors disguised as noble ideals. These are truths that no one wants to look at directly, because if they did, everything they believed about love, connection, and forever would begin to crumble. And yet it's precisely within those uncomfortable truths that freedom resides, the kind of truths that don't caress, they strike that tear at the soul, but also open the eyes. And there is one truth in particular that many men are not prepared to hear. A woman does not love the way you love. She never has, not out of malice or deceit, but because her internal logic, her emotional architecture responds to a system that is not yours while you build castles in the air, dreaming of eternity. She evaluates, selects, adapts, while you love from a deep yearning for fusion. She acts according to something older, more biological, more pragmatic, but you didn't know that. No one told you. Since childhood, you were taught that one day she would appear the right one. You are fed stories where love heals everything, where sacrifice is always rewarded, and where if you give it your all, you'll receive the same in return. You were told persistence was romantic, that crying for love was noble, that surrendering completely was the right thing to do. But they didn't tell you the most important part, that the kind of love you expect, the one that gives itself unconditionally and forever, is not the one that often governs how many women choose and love. Schopenhauer saw it with brutal clarity. He wrote without decoration, without the softening of poets or the sweetness of novelists. What the world calls romantic love is, for the most part, a mirage, a social construction that dulls the man, distracts him from his essence, domesticates him with the promise of a soulmate that may, in truth, be nothing more than a biological mechanism disguised as emotional destiny. The philosopher didn't say this to wound, but to awaken. He warned that the female instinct, though it doesn't come from disdain or cruelty, is programmed to seek protection, stability, continuity, that it often operates without the woman even being consciously aware of it, guided by the cold laws of natural selection. And that if a man doesn't understand this, if he keeps operating under the illusion that both genders love the same way, he will destroy himself, not because of her, but because he keeps expecting from her something she was never meant to provide. You didn't know. That's why you gave everything, your focus, your vital energy, your time, your vulnerability, believing that what you offered would be returned with the same depth, and when it wasn't, when you felt her grow cold, distant, disappear without clear explanation, the pain was unbearable, not just because you lost a person, but because the fantasy that had been holding you together suddenly collapsed. And it is precisely there in the heart of that void that this path begins. Because if you're reading this, if you felt that silent betrayal, if you've tasted the bitterness of giving everything and receiving only silence, then maybe you're ready to stop idealizing, ready to start seeing not from resentment but from clarity. When the illusion finally breaks, what remains isn't just pain, it's confusion, because you don't understand what happened. You thought you had done everything right. You were present, loyal, devoted. You gave her all you had without reservation, and yet she left or changed or replaced you without a clear explanation. And there, in that gap between what you believed and what actually occurred, the true fracture begins. It wasn't her departure that shattered you. It was realizing she had never been in the same story you were writing. Schopenhauer explained it without filters. To him, the love a man idealizes is a mirage that diverts him from his purpose, keeping him entangled in a narrative that was never his to begin with. From his perspective, what you interpret as eternal love may well be from the other side, an efficient biological strategy, a mechanism that selects, evaluates, and discards when it no longer serves its function. You thought the two of you were building something together, but she often, without consciously realizing it, was responding to her survival impulse. While you dreamed of soul-deep union, she was assessing your capacity to offer emotional, economic, and genetic stability not out of malice, not out of superficiality, but because of hardwired biological programming. And that, though it stings, doesn't make her less valuable, it makes her fundamentally different. The problem isn't her. The problem is your ignorance of that structural difference. While you expect love to be a sacred, unchanging promise, she may be seeing a temporary opportunity. While you believe that your full-hearted devotion guarantees permanence, her instinct tells her she must continually evaluate whether you remain the optimal choice, not from the romantic heart, but from the cold, primal logic of survival. And when you no longer are, when her unconscious perception senses that someone else might offer greater status, security, strength, or resources, her desire fades. No drama, no warning, no explanation. It simply vanishes. What you felt was a sacred bond becomes to her a completed cycle, and you who still believed love was eternal are left in ruins asking, "Where did I go wrong?" But you didn't go wrong. You simply entered the wrong game using rules you didn't know existed. You stepped onto an emotional battlefield thinking you were in a spiritual partnership, when in reality you were unknowingly participating in natural selection. That doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you foolish. It makes you human, deeply human, idealistic to the point of blindness. And this is the moment where many men break beyond repair. They become bitter, resentful, hardened. They think the only option is to hate women or withdraw from emotional connection entirely. But Schopenhauer didn't propose that. He never asked you to stop loving. He asked you to start seeing, to stop idealizing, to realize that what you call love might not have the same meaning from the other side. And once you see that there's no going back, the veil falls, and with it the entire narrative that kept you on your knees when everything collapses and she leaves. Whether physically or emotionally, you don't know how to respond. You're unprepared, because you didn't enter this bond through convenience. You entered through hope, through the deep conviction that she was the one, not a chapter, not a phase, not a possibility, but the final destination. That's why when she pulls away or someone else appears in her orbit, your entire world disintegrates. You feel the chill of the unexplainable, and worst of all, you blame yourself. So you try harder. You multiply the messages, the gestures, the desperate acts of affection. You fight to save what you had, but there's nothing left to save, because what you felt was a spiritual connection, was from her perspective and from Schopenhauer's cold lens, a functional bond that either fulfilled its purpose or was replaced by something more advantageous. And here comes the most devastating confusion. She doesn't hate you. She may not even have a clear reason. She's simply disconnected, not out of cruelty, not by design, but because her instinct told her to, because she no longer perceived in you the same promise of safety or progress. Because even without rational awareness, her nature functions like a radar that's always scanning. And when it detects someone with greater status, resources, symbolic strength, or future potential, her attraction shifts. You don't understand how this is possible, how someone can say she loves you one day and behave like a stranger the next. But that's because you still see love as a straight line, something that once born can only grow. You don't realize that for her that line is dynamic, flexible, dictated by factors you can't control and often can't even perceive. So in your desperation, you crawl, you cry, you beg, you become a shadow of who you were trying to revive, something that no longer exists. You humiliate yourself because you believe your love can reignite her interest. But the more you lower yourself, the more you vanish, the less she sees you, because she doesn't respond to your pain. She responds to your position, and when that position becomes needy, submissive, desperate, it no longer holds the value her instinct seeks, and in that quiet, invisible process, you lose more than a woman. You lose your center, your dignity evaporates, your direction collapses because everything had been anchored in her. Your purpose, your motivation, your emotional identity. And when she's gone, you no longer know who you are without that story. That's when the real fall begins, not with the breakup, but with the realization that you abandoned yourself inside that relationship. And the most bitter part is that you can't even hate her because deep down, you know she didn't write the false narrative. You did. You projected it, you dreamed it, and now pain teaches you with ruthless clarity that the price of idealizing without understanding is losing yourself in a story that was never real. That moment of collapse isn't just about heartbreak. It's an existential implosion because it's not only her that leaves, your entire sense of purpose which you had tied to her presence vanishes with her. The future you envisioned crumbles, the illusion you nurtured through every silent sacrifice, every small surrender of self evaporates, and what's left is emptiness. Emptiness and ruins, an identity shattered not by betrayal, but by the choice to pour your soul into something that only ever needed function, by expecting permanence in a system designed by biology to be adaptive, temporary, utilitarian. Schopenhauer didn't say this to break you. He said it to wake you. Because as long as you believe your devotion guarantees eternal love, you'll be destroyed by a logic that was never yours. Many men never recover. They remain there, trapped in a shattered narrative, repeating the cycle, chasing the same illusion with different names and faces over and over, hoping that this time it's different, but nothing changes because it's not the woman who must change. It's your perception that must shatter, your understanding, your mental framework, the story you believed was happening. And for that, you must face a brutal truth. You allowed it, not as guilt, but as key. You were the one who gave everything without requiring real reciprocity. You were the one who shifted your direction to fit into hers. You were the one who stopped building your own kingdom to invest in hers. You believed that love meant pain, that persistence was noble, that giving up was cowardice. But the real cowardice is continuing to feed an illusion that's killing your soul. When you repeat that phrase, "I allowed it," you're not condemning yourself, you're reclaiming power, because if you were the one who betrayed yourself, then you can also be the one who saves yourself. You can stop idealizing. You can stop seeking validation from someone who doesn't see you as an equal. You can start looking at yourself with the same intensity you once looked at her. Not to harden, not to hate, but to awaken, because deep down, you don't want revenge. You don't want punishment. What you truly want is clarity, and that clarity begins when you stop searching for answers in her shift and begin searching for the reason why you gave so much. Much without boundaries, when you understand that what hurts isn't just her absence, it's the abandonment of yourself. That man staring back at you from the shattered mirror, the one who no longer knows who he is, was not born from her actions. He was born the day you stopped respecting yourself, the day you decided she was worth more than your peace, your purpose, your vital energy. And the only way out of that abyss isn't through more romance, more hope, or blind faith. It's through truth, a truth that burns your eyes if it must. but finally lets you see, because as long as you remain sedated by the narrative they fed you, you will continue begging for emotional crumbs, believing it's love. But that's not love. That's dependency. And dependency destroys more souls than rejection ever could. And then comes the day when you can no longer keep lying to yourself. The day when something inside you breaks so violently that no sweet phrases or nostalgic memories can hold it together. That's the day you look the illusion straight in the eye and realize it wasn't her who destroyed you. It was you for dreaming with someone who was never dreaming the same dream. Schopenhauer didn't give you a blueprint for hatred. He offered you a mirror, one that not everyone dares to face, because what it reflects is not her, it's you, your need to idealize, your desperation to be loved, your chosen blindness. And if you can hold that gaze without flinching, without justifying, without fleeing, something shifts, something deep, something no one can ever take from you again. That's real freedom, not the one you scream to convince yourself you're fine, not the one you pretend in front of others. The kind of freedom born from properly lived pain. The kind that emerges when you accept that your worth is not defined by whether or not she chooses you, loves you, or validates you. That your purpose cannot depend on someone else's fluctuating desire, because you didn't come into this world to orbit her. You came to build your own center, your own kingdom, and if a woman walks beside you on that path, let it be out of mutual respect, shared vision and awareness, not because you need her to save you from yourself. The difference is everything when you stop idealizing, you stop begging, you stop shrinking yourself to fit, you stop negotiating with your essence just to be accepted. And finally, you reclaim something you had given away without realizing. Your vital energy, your presence, your clean, undiluted masculinity, your purpose, free from need. And that transformation doesn't require vengeance. It doesn't require resentment. It requires truth, the kind of truth that tells you that you are not here to be loved as a fantasy, but to be respected for who you truly are. And if that doesn't happen, if they don't see you, if they don't value you, then you must have the courage to walk away, not from anger, but from dignity, because you are not a stepping stone, you are not a phase, you are not a resource. You are an end in yourself, a man who walks firmly, even if he walks alone. One who would rather stand in the silence of his truth than stay in the golden prison of an illusion. And that choice, though painful at first, is the line that separates the conscious man from the emotional child who still hopes to be loved. Like in fairy tales, illusion doesn't die on its own. It dies when you choose to let it go, when you name it, understand it, release it. And then your true self emerges. Not the one who chased validation, not the one who gave blindly, but the one who will never again sacrifice his soul for a story written by someone else. Now you know. And with that, knowing you can't go back, you can't keep believing what you've already seen collapse. You can't betray yourself by chasing a fantasy that has already shown you its teeth. Love is not your enemy. Women are not your enemy. You. The true enemy was the lie you were told and chose to believe, but not anymore, because now you walk with open eyes, a straight spine, and an intact soul, not to hate, but to never again abandon yourself, and that is the true victory.